This is a real image of the surface of Mars. Right now, scientists around the world are debating what exactly was captured in the frame. Is it a rock, an optical illusion? Or is it an object that shouldn't be there at all? Because the more incredible and mysterious images we get from Mars, the less this planet looks like an ordinary desert.
How do you feel about photo shoots? Each of us has posed at least once in front of a Christmas tree, by the seaside, or among autumn leaves. But all of that is nothing compared to the photos sent to us by probes and telescopes. They send unique images to Earth of locations we are unlikely to reach in our lifetime. And that makes such photos extremely valuable for science, not to mention the sense of wonder they inspire in those who see them. Today we will show you the latest and most stunning images taken by the Hubble telescope, the Chandra X-ray Observatory, as well as the veteran Mars rover, Curiosity. Do you want to see a galaxy whose light has been traveling to us for hundreds of thousands of light years? Would you like to see incredible Martian landscapes with your own eyes? Could these photographs change our world in the future? It just so happens that in places where people can't reach, AI cameras become their eyes. For example, the Curiosity rover, created by the American Space Agency, has been operating on the Red Planet since August 6, 2012. In December of the same year, the mission was extended indefinitely, and Curiosity is still operating on Mars to this day. Do you think the rover has traveled hundreds of miles during this time? Not at all. It hasn't even covered 30 kilometers. Despite this, Curiosity has been invaluable to scientists. It has sent back numerous photographs of various locations on the Red Planet, mostly situated near Gale Crater. This is an impact crater that is about 4 billion years old. Curiosity was specifically designed to study this crater, and the rover is doing an excellent job. For example, recently it sent a photo from the slope of the Martian Mount Sharp, which left researchers in deep thought. The panorama included part of the mountain itself as well as the distant Rafael Navarro Peak. NASA employees were amazed by the beauty of the landscape and decided to turn this photo into a full-fledged postcard by adding several shades and compiling images taken at different times of the day. The result was something stunning, simultaneously reminiscent of both alien and earthly landscapes. This is how these photos look in black and white, just as they were sent by the rover. Of course, this isn't the only photo sent by the Curiosity rover. The mentioned mountain, named after a scientist who passed away in early 2021, appears in many of the probe's photos. It can be seen from afar. Maybe the photos provided by Curiosity are too monotonous? After all, it only explored Gale Crater? Not at all. The Curious probe tried to look into every corner of the huge impact crater with a diameter of 150 meters. For example, it repeatedly photographed not only Mount Sharp, but also its base. By the way, that's where the rover discovered clay. Curiosity's cameras also captured unique photographs of glowing clouds gathering over Gale Crater. By the way, it's possible that this huge depression is an ancient Martian lake. There are still heated debates on this issue. However, let's leave Mars alone and let's head to immeasurably more distant locations. Do you want to see images of a galaxy located at an unimaginably vast distance from us? Thanks to the Hubble telescope, this has become possible. Incredible as it may seem, the light from this galaxy traveled to us for 230 million years. Therefore, it is possible that it no longer exists in the form captured in the photo. In the picture, you can clearly see the spirals rapidly spinning around the center of the enormous structure. Modern telescopes are capable of looking deep into the universe and seeing things that people 100 or 200 years ago could not even imagine. The galaxy UGC 11537 is located in the constellation Aquila, and it is quite close to the Milky Way. It's so close that stars belonging to it appeared in the frame. The namesake of our channel, the Hubble telescope, observe this part of the sky as part of a program to study supermassive black holes, specifically to estimate their actual masses and to understand the movement of stars in such galaxies. Do you think this is the limit of the sharpness of Earth's optical systems? Absolutely not. They can see much farther. Thanks to the Chandra Space Observatory, astronomers have been able to take a closer look at the largest gravitationally bound structures in the macrocosm, galaxy clusters. As a rule, at the center of each of these clusters or conglomerates is the largest possible galaxy. Such groups include thousands of star clusters and clouds of hot gas, with a mass much greater than the galaxies themselves. This time, Chandra observed an object located almost 4 billion light-years away from us. It's not easy to comprehend such a distance. It's enough to understand that this is incredibly far away. We're talking about a galaxy cluster called RBS 797. Based on images from NASA's Space Observatory, it's assumed that there are 2 supermassive black holes at the center of this structure. In general, such a tandem is not uncommon in the universe, but for both active objects to be so close to each other and interacting so tightly, astronomers are seeing this kind of configuration for the first time. On top of that, these black holes are emitting extremely powerful jets. So what amazing thing did the scientists discover in this image? They observed strange, gigantic cavities that had previously been seen in other galaxies. The origin of these unusual voids is very difficult to explain. Most likely this is caused by matter which, with the help of oppositely directed jets, blows cavities in the hot gas clouds. Specialists from the University of Bologna have discovered a total of 4 such voids. In addition to them, 2 radio sources were observed through the telescope eyepiece, located at a distance of 250 light-years from each other. After the data is confirmed, these black holes will become the closest neighbors ever seen by astronomers on Earth. What practical benefit does this give us? If the void formation algorithm turns out to be plausible, astronomers will gain more knowledge about the physical conditions near the event horizons of black holes. But what is the farthest corner of the universe that Earth-based telescopes have been able to see? Here, Hubble once again distinguished itself. It holds the distinction. The telescope discovered the most distant galaxy ever detected by optical instruments. Its name is Genzi 11, and the object was born just 400 million years after the Big Bang. The light from this galaxy traveled to us for almost 13.5 billion years. Could the instruments have malfunctioned, or did the astronomers make a mistake somewhere? This scenario is ruled out since the scientists double-checked all the object's parameters using a light wave spectrometer. The results matched completely. The galaxy GNZ 11 is located in the constellation Ursa Major. And if we take into account the expansion of the universe, the so-called co-moving distance to it is 32 billion light-years. Astronomers have calculated that this object is 25 times smaller than the Milky Way and about 100 times less populated with stars. Previously, the most distant galaxy from us was considered to be EGS-1 EGSY 8P7, located in the constellation Boötes. It was discovered using the Keck Observatory. Presumably, the object is located 13.2 billion light-years from the edge of the Milky Way. Photographs of distant objects, whether they are planets of the solar system that we have never visited or galaxies as old as the universe itself, are of tremendous astronomical value for current and future generations. After all, they allow us to visually study processes that are often hidden from our understanding. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and write which topics you would like to discuss in future episodes. We always fulfill the wishes of our subscribers. According to official data, from 1423 to 1493, 3 ships with a crew of 90 people discovered the New World, which changed the course of all human history. That's how America was discovered. At that time, Landing on a new continent caused a shock similar to a space discovery. And the first colonizers experienced about the same thing as the astronauts who were the first to set foot on the surface of the moon. Today, in the 21st century, we expect a similar experience on Mars. Plans for its colonization no longer seem like a chapter from science fiction. However, let's take a look at how humanity has changed its attitude toward the red planet throughout its history. What is the likelihood that life once existed on Mars? And how did this assumption arise? Is it worth believing in conspiracy theories? And what is the strange formation on Mars that looks like a human face? Mars? This planet holds the record for the most mentions in fiction. Just think about how many science fiction books have been written about this planet. Moreover, Mars has interested not only modern writers. Even in ancient times, this red dot in the sky fascinated people. Their imagination would run wild, and new theories kept emerging about what this distant, mysterious planet really was. In ancient times, people were especially interested in why this dot was red in color. They often associated it with fire or blood. In ancient Babylon, the planet was considered a symbol of the god of fire and war, Nergal. The Greeks held a similar view, associating Mars with their own god of war, Ares. The planet got its name in honor of the Roman god of war, Mars. As is well known, many aspects of Roman mythology were borrowed from Greek mythology. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the names of most celestial objects did not change. At certain periods in history, people forgot about the red dot, so it became not a bloody symbol, but just an ordinary, uninteresting planet. Whether it was even a planet, no one knew the exact answer at that time. The 17th century was marked by the appearance of the first telescope, and people were able to learn much more about what had been above their heads all this time. They managed to get a closer look at Mars, and it no longer seemed as mystical as it did before. Over time, technology became more advanced, and we gained a clearer understanding of what Mars actually is. People learned about how fast it rotates on its axis and orbits the sun, what elements make up its atmosphere, what its terrain is like, what moons it has, and so on. Of course, we didn't find any traces of extraterrestrial civilization on Mars, but as you can guess, that didn't stop writers and science fiction authors. In 1877, the first detailed map of Mars appeared. It was made by the Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli. What's on this map? We see seas and land as well as canals connecting them. Schiaparelli believed that such features appeared naturally without anyone's intervention. But this didn't stop conspiracy theorists and people who like to fantasize. More and more versions started to appear, claiming that this was not just a coincidence. An outsider was definitely involved. A misunderstanding due to an inaccurate wording played its role here. The astronomer used words in his work that are applied to both man-made and natural objects. In English, different words are used for these concepts. Because of this, confusion arose, which led to rumors that someone lives on Mars. Some even claimed that they had found that very extraterrestrial civilization. Among them was Percival Lowell, an astronomer, mathematician, writer, entrepreneur, and a specialist in designing plant systems on Mars. For more than 15 years, the red planet fascinated and obsessed Lowell. That's why he endlessly studied the map of Mars, which later resulted in him writing 3 books. In them, Lowell talks about the inhabitants of the red planet, who are close to extinction but desperately try to postpone their end with the help of a network of canals. People of the 19th century really liked this version. Those times were marked by the Industrial Revolution and the emergence of large-scale construction projects. Amidst such changes, people were very attracted to the idea that similar processes could be happening on Mars as well. The scientific community did not share the public's enthusiasm and doubted the truth of such theories. In some places on the surface of Mars, darkening could be observed, but it was impossible to see the canal system that Lowell insisted on. The only thing left was to add a bit of imagination And that's exactly what the astronomer, mathematician, and entrepreneur did. We have already mentioned that such attention to Mars left a significant mark on popular culture, including literature. For example, the famous science fiction writer Herbert Wells revived fantasies about extraterrestrial civilizations in his work, The War of the Worlds. Even though the fantastic plots conceal a condemnation of real trends of colonialism and imperialism, the characters come from the planet Mars. They show that world domination does not belong to Earthlings by invading England. In other science fiction works, Mars also very often appeared as the homeland of conquerors, who intended to seize not only the solar system, but the entire universe. However, time passed and technology developed, and now the idea of Mars in people's minds is not as romanticized as it used to be. In 1964, thanks to the Mariner space probe program, we received an image of the surface of Mars taken from a distance of about 10,000 kilometers. As you can imagine, no signs of living beings were found there. They weren't found on Mars even after landing probes there. This also changed the way science fiction was written. Now Mars was no longer a lively planet whose inhabitants had ambitious plans to conquer the world. The situation became exactly the opposite. Now Mars is the planet that everyone wants to colonize. For example, we can see a similar plot in Kim Stanley Robinson's books, who explored the desire to settle the Red Planet from the perspective of events happening on Earth. Everything has turned upside down. In modern popular culture, it is now humans who consider themselves all-powerful and make ambitious plans to conquer the universe. It would seem that the situation with Mars is more or less clear, and there's definitely no point in coming up with any new conjectures. However, to the amazement of most people, a formation was discovered on Mars that looks very much like a human face. Fans of incredible theories had their imaginations sparked again. In reality, this part of the terrain only vaguely resembles a face. But if you let your imagination run wild, be that as it may, people want to believe in something fantastic, in something that even slightly matches the plots of Wells's novels and others. And in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter who these inhabitants might be. Practical people who built irrigation systems for survival, or beings with a sense of beauty who were drawn to art. But one question still remains open. So where did this strange face-like formation come from? Scientists stayed silent for over 20 years. During this time, the number of conspiracy theories grew at an incredibly fast rate. When satellites gained the ability to take higher quality images, it turned out that these were just ordinary hills. The shadows in the early images may have made it look like a face. The unknown is so alluring, which is why it gives rise to the wildest theories. In ancient times, there were a lot more of them, since back then advanced technologies were out of the question. But the legend of Martians is a unique part of ancient cultures that reflects people's worldview. And there is still a lot we don't know in modern times since we're not all powerful. Who knows? Maybe in a few hundred years, our descendants will read our scientific works with a slight smile, seeing everything we've written as an amusing legend. It just so happens that in our perception, space is something distant, something that doesn't really concern us, and something we don't need to know much about. What happens on our own planet is much more important than what's going on somewhere on Mars. We're only interested in what laws the government passes, the dollar exchange rate, who won Eurovision, and how much the number of immigrants in the US has increased. That's our reality, and very few people think about how insignificant these issues really are. For us, all of this is just a way to avoid thinking about bigger issues that have a direct impact on our planet, and therefore on us as well. Maybe it's worth breaking out of our illusory reality and realizing that only in space is the future of all humanity possible. That we are defenseless against a huge number of celestial bodies that freely fly past us. That there are many galaxies in the universe we know nothing about, and civilizations could be emerging there. Maybe someday we'll have to make direct contact with extraterrestrial beings. There's no telling what can be found in the vast expanses of space. It's finally time to cast aside all our fears and pay attention to what's happening in the universe. Could there be a planet beyond Neptune that's 100 times the size of Mars or Earth? The space community recently released an interesting article. It says that beyond the orbit of Neptune, there is quite possibly another planet, with a size similar to our Earth or Mars. The article also explains that the solar system is formed in such a way that it can use gravity to push such a celestial body beyond its boundaries. Scientists continue to study our planetary system not only to gain a clearer understanding of the origin of celestial objects, but also of how they ended up in their current orbits. In this article, the authors emphasize that the existing models of the formation of the solar system do not yet explain such aspects due to a lack of data. Most likely, the list of missing information also includes facts about a planet that orbited the Sun outside the system. There are also giant planets located there, such as Neptune, Jupiter, Uranus, and Saturn. And most likely, they are now in the outer part of the solar system, or even farther out in interstellar space. Currently, the arrangement of objects in our system looks like this. Inside, there are 4 rocky planets, the asteroid belt, and then 4 gas giants in the outer part. Such a configuration seems rather strange to scientists. Beyond the 4 giant planets, Neptune, Jupiter, Uranus, and Saturn, there are dwarf planets and other celestial bodies like comets. Scientists agree that something is missing here. In their opinion, the development of our planetary system could not have ended this way, that is, with dwarf planets after the 4 giants. If you think logically, it turns out that beyond the aforementioned giant planets, there should be bodies of different sizes. For example, similar in size to Mars or Earth. Therefore, such a planet most likely exists and is located in the outer part of the solar system between 2 gas giants. If all the hypotheses turn out to be true, then this celestial body is now either in interstellar space far from us, or has joined the dwarf planets. To settle this question, more modern telescope models need to be used for research, and their development is already in full swing. Currently, the instruments do not have enough power to detect a planet at such a great distance. How is the mission of the Lunar Rover U-22 going? At the end of 2018, the Chang'e 4 spacecraft, which also served as a landing platform, began its space mission. And just a month later, the Lunar Rover U-22 landed on the surface of our planet's satellite. The device transmitted data to Earth using a special orbital probe. The Lunar Rover studied the von Karman crater, one of the largest craters. In total, the U-22 mission lasted 1,000 days. This is the longest period for devices like this lunar rover. The total distance that U-22 covered is more than 800 meters. It studied lunar regolith, residual soil, and the boulders that were there. Although at first scientists planned to send the rover to the moon for only a few months, over a longer period, U-22 was able to collect a lot of important data about the lunar surface. It discovered elements of the lunar mantle, learned about the structure of one of the inner layers, measured the radiation level, and even managed to grow Chinese cotton. At the moment, both the rover and the Chang'e 4 lander are in what's called deep sleep mode. Soon, they will be able to continue their work. The Perseverance rover has captured high-resolution images of the dunes. It's no secret that Mars is a very popular planet, not only for researchers, but also in pop culture, even though at first glance there doesn't seem to be anything interesting there for the average person. While we keep getting more and more movies and books about wars on Mars, scientists are trying to gather as much data about this planet as possible. There are so many myths and speculations about it. For example, NASA organized missions for the devices. curiosity to study the Gale crater, insight to gather data about the structure of Mars's outer layers, and perseverance to find signs of ancient life forms. Such research is not easy to organize. They require financial investments and a huge amount of time to think everything through in detail. Be that as it may, the results are worth the effort. For example, at the height of its mission, Perseverance was able to capture images of the Martian terrain. It was confirmed that this celestial body is dusty, cold, and has a lot of sand. Take a look at this photograph. Dunes can not only be inhospitable, but also very beautiful. The images taken by the rover are of high quality, which means you can see even the small details. The size of each object in the photo and the shapes the sand takes under the influence of wind currents. Previously, our understanding of the Martian landscape was based on assumptions and low-quality images. Click the bell to stay updated. And by the way, don't forget.
В курсе обновлений. И скажите свое маленькое спасибо.
Like and subscribe so you don't miss new videos.